Almost 200 years ago, an adventurous Scotsman, his family and a team of convicts ventured into Tasmania's interior to establish a farm at Bothwell in Tasmania's Central Highlands. Their legacy has endured. Ratho is home to Australia's oldest golf course and the country's oldest chook shed as well. And now a new generation of similarly enterprising owners are transforming and preserving the historic property. Fiona Blackwood reports.
Ratho at Bothwell has changed little in nearly 200 years. It has all the trimmings of a traditional estate in Britain or Scotland.
We don't know exactly when they threw up what we call the facade, but it was really just a way of trying to add some grandiose touch of home to the front of their residence here.
But a closer look at the columns reveals the ingenuity of new settlers making do in the Antipodes.
They're just literally tree trunks that were cut down. They didn't have any marble, but being from Edinburgh, which is a very much a Ionic column city, if you've been to Edinburgh, then this is very much a Scottish feeling of Edinburgh.
Alexander Reid and his family emigrated from Scotland in 1822. They left the convenience of life near Hobart and headed to the Highlands.
They were dragging themselves up into, and when I say dragging, you know, by horse and dray, all of these, you know, worldly goods from Scotland to an area that was described at the time as a lightly wooded grassland, because the Aboriginals had actually, through the summer months, they would burn this off and it had actually sort of cleared up into quite good grazing grassland.
It proved productive, and the family and a team of convicts soon established a self-contained estate here.
There's a milking yard here, as well as a dairy for settling out the cheese and the butter and the milk. There's obviously a slaughterhouse for the killing of the beasts, and then there's a meat shed, or a meat house where the meat was hung. There's a skin shed where the hides would be tanned into leather and used, and so on. There's a blacksmith shop.
There's also an elaborate chook shed, believed to be the oldest in Australia and included in a John Glover painting of the property.
That's the original chicken coop, as it stands today.
It's not the only record of Ratho. The diaries and letters over generations have been collected and published, bringing to life the challenges of early settlement, including accounts of bushranger attacks.
The others took axes and began to break open the chest of drawers, while my mother, with her usual admirable composure, told them it was a pity to destroy the furniture.
Alongside the hardships and hard work, the early settlers took time out for sport, establishing a golf course on the property.
It was a very popular pastime for Scottish people, and the fact that they've got the land out here, it made natural sense for them.
It's now Australia's oldest course and has been open to tourists in recent years.
I guess what's tried to be captured here is the essence of what golf was, back in 1822 when it started.
Greg Ramsey is taking the tourism venture further.
This whole area sort of has lacked any large-scale accommodation facilities, so it was just a natural thing for me, because I love history and I love the old buildings, and to give them a new purpose and a future, because sadly a lot of farm buildings, if they're not used, they just end up falling over.
Greg Ramsey's great-grandfather bought Ratho from the Reids in the 1930s.
Alexander Reid III put Ratho on the market because he only had 2 daughters. He didn't have a son to take over the land.
The Ramseys have kept Ratho's farming tradition alive, but are now preparing to open the estate to overnight guests.
Lots of challenges. Basically, they're quite tiny. People used to live in much tinier buildings than they do now. But we see that as being an opportunity to create some great spaces that people don't often experience.
Convict huts and barns are being converted into accommodation.
That's known as the broken back barn, and as the client told us, apparently it's always been broken across the ridge line. We've rectified that, and basically down there will be 2 new accommodation units as well.
The renovation has revealed history and convict craftsmanship.
I think the builders actually have been quite taken aback at times at how enduring a lot of the very original artisanal work has been, from the shingles to a lot of the original pit sawn beams and timbers are still in situ.
Farm life will continue alongside tourism. And like Ratho's previous owners, Greg Ramsey has lots of plans about how to make every bit of the estate productive.
We're weighing up things like a ginger beer brewery, because there isn't a visitor ginger beer brewery, or a big mushroom, farm, because you need to be indoors and it can all be controlled through light.
And while there are new ideas, the homestead will take on its traditional role.
It's almost like everyone sits down together and they all help each other with a glass of wine in their hand or a beer, and they all have a fun time, just like the Reeds enjoyed the property back from the 1830s.
Providing the same hospitality as documented in 1851.
It gave me a sort of home feeling when I found myself for the first time seated in the pleasant parlour of Ratho, the home of a most amiable and accomplished Edinburgh family.
Despite the passage of time, there's plenty that stayed the same at Alexander Reed's Ratho.
Once it's all finished, I think he would be thrilled to think that what he and his children and the sacrifices they'd made to actually create a future just for the family. At that time, that's all they were thinking of. But now Ratho will become, a new tourism future for the whole Central Highlands.